We're closely monitoring events in Venezuela. However, not many people know the background of the political situation in a country captured by an authoritarian regime considered as the 142nd with the least democracy in the world, according to the Economist Index. To better understand, let's review some concepts and the recent history of Venezuela. Pinto Lisa? Alright, then stay until the end of the video. Let's discuss ideas first. Chavismo is an adapted version of the so-called 21st century socialism. Among its ideals are the anti-imperialism, personality cult, Latin American integration, and anti-capitalism. These ideas are based on the image of Simón Bolívar, leader of Latin American independence, and whose principles were social justice and the fight against oppression. They say, thanks to his effective communication and charismatic personality, Chávez connected with his audience, presenting himself as an outsider, ready to challenge the established system and bring about social justice. After the Caracazo, where 276 people died, the image of the Venezuelan government collapsed, which led to a coup attempt in 1992 led by Chavez. After the failure, he was arrested and imprisoned for 2 years, which made him a benchmark. With this, Hugo Chavez swept the 1998 elections with 56% of the votes. Thus began the era of Chavismo in Venezuela, which extends until our days, carrying the slogan of the Bolivarian Revolution and promising political and economic reforms in the country. In 1999, a new constitution was approved that gave the country its peculiar name and granted Chavez broad presidential powers, like Bolivar, right? In 2002, 3 years after the start of his term, there was a coup limit. After the coup, the military generals to Chavez reinstated him in power, allowing him to resume the presidency 3 days after the event. During this period, the oil industry was nationalized, subsidies were expanded, and price controls were implemented. Social programs known as the Bolivarian missions were also implemented to combat poverty, and a redistribution of oil wealth was carried out. Thanks to these measures, Chavez was re-elected in 2006 with a wide margin. However, economic problems such as inflation and a shortage of basic goods began to emerge. This discontent, coupled with the closure of the Radio Caracas television channel, sparked a series of protests in 2007. 2013 was a key year in the history of Venezuela. Hugo Chavez died and was replaced by his vice president Nicolas Maduro, who won elections accused of being fraudulent. This coincided with the collapse of oil prices in 2014, exacerbating the already present economic crisis. Hyperinflation and scarcity were the most common headlines of the time. Likewise, in 2017, new authoritarian policies were implemented, dissolving the Congress in favor of the creation of a constituent assembly with plenipotentiary powers. This measure was not recognized by many countries, as it was perceived as an institutionalization of authoritarianism, reinforced by repression and the imprisonment of opposition leaders. This coincides with the increase in the migration crisis, as in the face of hunger and scarcity, millions of Venezuelans left the country, mainly to Colombia, Peru, the United States, and Spain. In 2018, new elections were held, where Maduro won by an absolute majority. These elections were accused of being fraudulent and considered illegitimate by many countries around the world. According to the Constitution, if there is no legitimate president, the President of the National Assembly can assume the interim presidency. In this case, the opposition leader Juan Guaidó declared himself interim president in 2019. Several countries recognized him as the legitimate president. This triggered new protests that, like those of 2014 and 2017, were stained with blood. During the last years, the economic, political, and social crisis in Venezuela has continually worsened while the massive migration has not ceased. International sanctions have intensified the country's isolation, although President Maduro continues to have the support of powerful allies such as Russia and China. In the economic field, an opening towards the globalization of the economy has been promoted while attracting foreign investments at the same time, without giving up state control. In January 2023, Guaidó lost the majority parliamentary support, abolished the figure of the interim government. After this decision, Guaidó left the country without having achieved significant changes beyond his self-proclamation as president. Currently, the opposition led by Maria Corina Machado and represented in the elections by Edmundo Gonzalez was shaping up as the virtual winner of the elections according to polls and exit poll results. This result, which suggests the possibility of a new electoral fraud, has triggered a series of new protests. Since 1999, Venezuela has lived a history, cyclical, marked by an authoritarian regime that seeks to cling to power at all costs, even at the expense of the lives of those who fight for the country's freedom. What do you think would be the ideal way for Venezuelans to reclaim their country? Don't forget to leave your comment and subscribe to the channel. Also, I leave in the description my social networks, and in case you want to see the new videos in pre-release and have a greater interaction with me, your donations on Patreon, unamanito.net, or channel members are welcome. Until next time. CC Films Argentina.